then David or Marty, I don't know if you guys want to go through some introductions and then kick it off.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and this is Marty. I'll go ahead and kick off some introductions on our side. So first of all, thank you all for joining us this afternoon to talk about BluePoint Alert Solutions and our offering in the rapid emergency response system space. We'll cover a lot of good information for you this afternoon to give you some insight as to what the solution is all about and so forth. But first, I'd like to introduce Dave Ox, Executive Vice President for BluePoint Alert Solutions, who I'm going to kick it over to in just a few minutes here to conduct the presentation. And then I also have JT McNutt and Justin Abney on from our operations and technical teams to do the actual demonstration for those that have their cell phone numbers that were presented. They've been entered into the system, and you'll be able to go right along with us as the demonstration is conducted. So without delay, I will turn it over to Dave Ox.
Thank you, Marty. And Justin, just as an FYI, I'll take this for the first bit, and then I'll actually hand it over to you for taking over the screen. That makes sense, correct? We're doing the demo.
That's fine.
Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'll do my best. I'm not a Google Meets expert, so just give me a heads up here if you actually can see a PowerPoint slide coming through in a second. It looks like it's working on my end. Are you able to see it? Perfect. Great. Thank you. So as Marty said, we work for BluePoint Alert Solutions. BluePoint is a rapid emergency response system really designed about 10 years ago in response to weapons threats that were happening in schools. So the goal was to provide immediate notification to first responders and building occupants in an emergency. Really, the goal was to provide that just immediate notification to the building, so eliminating the risk of kind of through calling 911, taking the human element out of it, and really getting first responders there quicker. I'm going to go through a bit of an overview of the system, a little history of how we got to where we are. The real power of our system is what we call our C2 platform. It really stands for command and control. We'll run a demonstration for you. So we'll kind of tease you with what the system can do, the real power of what it brings. But then you'll get to experience that live and then really show the value of what it does. And then we'll get back, throw some marketing collaboration, what we do, and kind of talk next steps and things from there. So the goal is just to give a little background and some history. The demand for safety just continues to grow at a rapid pace. You can see on the bottom there left, schools get a lot of emphasis, but the amount of school shootings have just elevated exponentially in the last 7 years. It just continues to grow. In addition, schools only make up about 25% of, we'll call it the active shooter or workplace violence things that occur. We're starting to see growth in so many other places, corporate office space, warehousing space, things that you probably spend your time building. We're just seeing that. In addition, medical emergencies are on the rise. So there's over 100,000 medical emergencies in schools every year. There's thousands of fatal work injuries every year. And then there's just situations that occur on the workplace. And so our system allows for really immediate notification for many types of emergencies, whether it be a weapons threat, whether it be a medical emergency or something else.
Yeah, good madness.
So, and feel free to stop me if you have any questions as we're going. This is always the hardest challenge with 10 or 12 different people on the call, but interrupt me, stop me. In addition, the need for security, as it just shows in a different slide, that you can see the growth of incidents and casualties. And while it kind of dropped in 2020, you saw it increase, and then it slowed down a bit in 2023. But that increase, it's on the rise, and you see it on the news all the time. You see reports of just unfortunate things that are occurring within the workplace. So this is an example of kind of the industries that we serve. And in 2023. There were 48 commercial shootings resulting in nearly 250 casualties. And that kind of happens across all these different lines of business, whether it be a medical facility, a commercial space, government facility, places of worship, corporate office. Really, schools, as I mentioned before, really account for only about 6% of the incidents. They get all the news and all the press, but it's really happening in many, many other places. And really, it's a great fit for kind of the work you're doing across the country as you're building and working with your clientele. As I mentioned before, the mission of BluePoint is to provide an affordable, we call it Rapid Emergency Response System. It does the three things on the left. Instantly notifies emergency responders and building occupants of a threat. It does that through multitudes of ways we'll walk you through in a second. Expedites a rapid and precise response to really help people with situational awareness, and then empowers people to make more informed decisions and to save valuable time. Very simply put, an activation of one of our system really gets information out there as it relates to the location or address of where it occurred, where in the building it occurred, and then it starts a robust communication platform that allows organizations to kind of communicate with first responders and people inside the building. We have the ability to interact and engage with cameras if they have them, strategically selecting some IP cameras to grab that. That allows you to kind of pull that in. And so we work with you to not replace the VMS system they have, but maybe if you decide to grab a couple of camera feeds, we can do that for a small cost to kind of allow for that immediate response. Our purpose and our goal, as it says across the bottoms, is really to improve outcomes in an emergency situation. That's our ultimate goal, whether it's to reduce and help first responders with potential victims, better situational awareness, or whatever. We had a real life story just last week of a medical emergency at a warehousing space. Activation occurred, began the notification to get first responders there. They went and called 911 just to additionally do that. Ironically, which is terrible to say, but 911 didn't answer their phone when they called. They called back then a few minutes later and said, "Hey, we noticed you called." They told them what the situation was. They said, "Oh, we've already received the notification of your building. We've actually dispatched somebody there already." So it just shows the power of our system that you activate it, and within seconds, things begin to happen and move in the right direction. Just a little bit of our history. The idea came about of BluePoint really post the Sandy Hook school shooting in 2012. Our founder, John McNutt, was in the business of building churches, libraries, schools for a living, was building a brand new high school for a school district outside Chicago. And the superintendent after Sandy Hook said, "We have to build a new mousetrap." John and others spent time kind of building what became BluePoint. 2014 was the first install. Expanded to places of worship 2015, got into commercial spaces, government buildings 2017. Our system actually allows for our pull stations to be customized, so they could be a police pull station, they could be a medical pull station. We had a customer in a commercial space request a hazardous spill activation device, which you activate and does what it needs to do. Had our first medical pull station resulting in a life saved. We've have numbered since then. We crossed over 500 systems installed 2022 and continue to grow, and we're getting close to 1,000 kind of installs and growing. So just a little history of the company of how it grew. We kind of survived through the COVID space because nobody was in buildings and worried about security, but that we've simply passed that kind of now as we're in the state we're in now. People ask us, why would I put BluePoint in versus just calling 911? I referenced a second ago that sometimes, 911, you may not know what you're going to get on the other end. Historically, in an emergency, you have a legacy response. And that legacy response has a couple of different ways it could go about. The simplest legacy response could go back to somebody has to call the front office calls 911. They then give the information to 911. Then they have to do some other way to notify the building, whether it would be a PA or some type of text message or some type of email that goes out. Secondarily, some buildings now have voice over IP systems where they can grab a phone they're in, they can dial a code that allows them to get the information out. There's a plethora of kind of options that are out there, but all many times involved human element. They involve the human kind of doing something, answering a phone. I was actually with a school district last week that everything they do requires them to call the front office. And the safety director said, "Well, what if nobody's in the front office?" That eliminates that chain, which stops the process. In addition, in an emergency, nobody really knows how they're going to respond. And we have that box at the bottom left that says, in an emergency, will you freeze up? Will you not have the same motor skills you normally have? We have a client who tells a story that they had an individual having a seizure. They activated a device and they went to call 911. And the person calling 911 said for about 10 seconds, she forgot how to call 911. And then when she got the operator on the phone, the operator said, "What's your address?" She said, "I don't know. I drive here to work every day." She wasn't able to remember the simple things because she was watching somebody in a very scary situation have a seizure. But if you'd asked her an hour before that, she'd have told you exactly what the address was, and she'd have known exactly how to call 911. So we just share with people that in an emergency, nobody knows how they're going to respond. The goal of BluePoint is to kind of eliminate that need. Activation occurs, and across the bottom where you see point 1 under BluePoint, all 5 of those things kind of happen simultaneously upon an activation. You're notifying leadership. Could be through a phone call, text message, could be an email. You're notifying potentially through a strobe in a building, could be a PA announcement that goes across. You're immediately notifying police/EMS. If it's a police emergency, you're notifying first responders for that. If it's just a medical emergency, maybe you're notifying just the corresponding jurisdiction that responds to you need an ambulance to be sent. So you're able to do that immediately upon an activation. You're identifying and communicating that exact location in the building based on the pull station, and then you're alerting all your primary contacts. So now, let's just say, God forbid, you're in a building that has a weapons threat happening. If you've got 200 people in that building, activation occurs. You've now notified all 200 of those people through a phone call/text message, and then have the ability to be on a two-way robust communication platform with them. Same being true if there's a medical emergency. You might decide that in this building, these 6 or 8 people respond to that medical emergency. That happens. The other 194 people go about their business as they do, but those 6 people who need to know there's a medical emergency happening in the building are able to respond. Goals to move to safety protocols faster, get police on site faster, and really neutralize the emergency, account for people, and then restore your operations. It's a really powerful tool that kind of accelerates the need for notification. Our devices are pretty simple. You have input devices, which are either pull stations on a wall. You can see a difference there between police and medical. We have hazardous material as well. If you were to install the system with a wireless platform, you could actually put in some wireless pendants that people could wear. We have outputs, which are strobes. They can be ceiling and wall strobes, also have external strobes. We also have speaker strobes if that's necessary in a building that doesn't have a speakering system. Additionally, we can have relays, so we can connect with existing things. So if they have a PA system, we can integrate with their PA system. So upon an activation, there's a recorded message that gets played. We can also tie into other things we'll walk through in a second. But the real power of our system is what you see on the right. It's the ability upon an activation to create a very robust communication platform that connects everyone together. And that is not an app they put on their phone. It is not an app they're required to have on their desktop or on their phone. It just comes through as a text message and or an email. It's cloud-based, and the information is right there in front of them. Very, very powerful, the tool that allows you to do it. This next slide just kind of walks you through kind of what our deployment looks like. You might say to yourself, looks awfully familiar to a fire alarm. We modeled this after a fire alarm years ago because fire alarms are kind of the gold standard in security. They're fully supervised. They're fully monitored. Our system does both those things. Our system has a head-end panel, which you can kind of see in that gray box in the middle. If you choose a wired system, there's a wire that connects all the pull stations back to the head-end panel. They can be daisy chained down through some connectors that we have that allow you to do that. In addition, there's a keypad that measures its annunciator. It shows signal strength. It shows system strength. Is it on? Is it not on? It allows to measure if it's in test mode. You can move it that way. Is there some type of what I should call trouble happening? Maybe there's a device that became disconnected. You now know that by troubling. That's the supervision value that comes with it. If you choose to do wirelessly, which is kind of at about 1 o'clock on that picture, you have a repeater system you set up across the building that allows you to place those pull stations really anywhere in the building. Whether it be wired or wireless, they are point identifiable, they are customizable. So either system allows you to kind of notify, pinpoint where that device is from a pull station standpoint. The pendants that I mentioned before are wireless. They can work anywhere on the campus, but those are assigned to an individual or assigned to a location. So maybe they're assigned to an area, a parking garage, or they're assigned to a ball field or something along those lines, where you know where that person's at. Between those two is at, say, 3 o'clock inputs we can take. So we can take different inputs and put them into our system. And if those were to have an activation occur, they would notify people. Again, a customized list you would create. At about 11 o'clock, it talks about the relay outputs that we have, PA, digital signage, other things that we can connect with. And then at 9 o'clock, we have the ability for a NAC panel that drives a strobing system if you needed it. And lastly, on the bottom at about 7 p.m. or 7 o'clock, it shows that we have a central station monitoring, and that allows for the command and control platform, the immediate notification kind of back through text messaging, the calls that go off to local dispatch. And that's really where the integration happens with IP addressable cameras if you have some and want to pull them in. So a really robust system that really provides great value, and it's simple and easy to use. It's on a wall, just like a fire alarm, can activate just like it, and moves the system into complete either notification for a medical emergency or, God forbid, lockdown for a weapons threat event. This next slide just kind of shows in more detail what separates us and makes us unique. We are much more than just a panic button you have connected to your burglar system. A couple things on the outside, intuitive to use in a panic. I mentioned integrates. We do have multiple patents on our system. Then on the bottom left, it complies with FEMA's recommended incident command structure. So it really provides great value in all those ways. And then across the circle in the middle really separates us. It's 24/7 supervision. The system is always on, always operational. We've got redundant communications built in. So if one of the ways of communication went down, secondary source would use it to communicate out. System is fully battery backed up. It's secure from unauthorized disabling. I mentioned before, there's no app required to install, so people can immediately get the notifications. It's really adaptable to any building. You could be in a small building that's got 1,000 square feet or a multi-million square foot building. System is UL certified from a monitoring standpoint, and then it notifies all facility occupants. So a really powerful tool that really makes it unique and special. And then our communication platform, really what we call C2, which I'll touch on here very quickly. And then really the power of our system is watching a demonstration occur, and Justin will do that. But we really call our communication platform C2. Really the goal is to bring all critical information together, enable swift, really informed decision-making. And again, what's great about this system is you could be away from a building that has an activation, but if you're included in the notification, you're a part of the response. So the phone you see in the middle is an example of the text message that you would receive. I'll show you this in a larger picture in a second. It allows you to communicate back through text to see other and to get response in that way. There are a multitude of links that can come through, and you can decide who gets what links. One link is a map layout of the building, shows you where the device was activated. Another link might be access to a camera, which you can see on the left of somebody walking downstairs. It just allows for a really powerful piece of information. Next slide just talks about really the differences between C2 and kind of a traditional emergency response. And so, as I mentioned before, some people say, I'm just going to put a panic button on my burglar system. Well, you press that button, what happens? Well, if you press a panic button, you're notifying somebody that there's an activation that's occurred within the building. There's this automatic communication. Most panic buttons go right to monitoring, but don't go internally. But in some situations, you can have a panic button make a notification internally. BluePoint, our C2 platform, does that. You activate it, you've now sent a message out to everybody. Beyond that, everything our system does really transforms what a system can do in an emergency. It allows for that immediate notification, allows for interactive communication. You can see that, you'll experience that in a second with what Justin's going to do. You can continually send simultaneous and ongoing alerts. You can keep sending messages through to individuals. You're going to pull up what we call VPI, visual point identification, which is a map layout of your building, showing you where the device was activated. The live video feed access, and then really phenomenal situational awareness, all of which comes with our system upon an activation and separates us and differentiates us from other systems that are out there. The next couple slides I'll go through fairly quickly. This is what you'll experience in the demo. So this is what the text looks like. It gives you the device type, whether it be police, medical, hazardous material, or something else if you choose it. We can even do security for if you have an on-site security staff. Secondarily, we've got device description. So you've got the ability for an addressable device. Where's it at? What's it doing? Those types of things. And then the 4 links. The live link brings you communication platform, the VPI, the video, and report location. This is an example of the live link you're going to see. It's available for you to see either on a desktop or on your phone. So you can see it in that way. You click it, you can see everyone's responses, respond back to them, communicate. When the text comes out, it doesn't create this massive group text chat. It creates communication kind of one-on-one to the person, but then you have the capacity to see very large and very robust communication back and forth. VPI really provides for great situational awareness from a mapping standpoint to know where in the building the device was activated. Really powerful from a standpoint of understanding where law enforcement has to go if you have a very large campus, or if you're in a building that is trained for response and emergency. Maybe you'll decide, because this activation occurred far from where I'm at, I might decide to check my surroundings and leave the building. Again, really allows for that wonderful situational awareness. I talk about strategic pulling in video feeds, which you can do. Again, we're not replacing your VMS, but in an emergency, centralized capacity to pull up a couple strategic cameras for you to look at, which allows you to see kind of what's happening in and around your building in an emergency. And then lastly, our system allows for using your cell phone technology, reporting your location. So you can actually click a button, allow your phone to be tracked. We can only track somebody's phone during an activation. You could actually show kind of where you are. So if you have a distributed organization that you're working with, you could be far, far away and be the director of, say, safety and risk control and now have the ability to be a part of a communication, but kind of see what's happening for people when they're there. So I was really a talking head there as I kind of went through that, but it's a really powerful tool that allows you for this immediate kind of notification and emergency, and really helps and provides some just phenomenal response in that. So I'm going to stop sharing now. If there's any questions, please ask them. But Justin's going to take over. And what he's going to do now is kind of run a demonstration for you using our command and control platform. So I'll open it up to kind of, if anybody's got a question as we're kind of waiting here for Justin to load his system up.
Yeah, earlier on you had a map that showed blue states, lighter blue states, and white states. What do those colors signify?
That really just signifies where we've been installed. So we started in Chicago and kind of grew. And so we need to update that map, but it's really showing the states that we've installed in. So if you think about our system, we started in Chicago. I don't have the number memorized currently, but we're probably approaching 250, maybe 300 installed in Northern Illinois. And we're kind of growing like an onion. So California just became blue because we just installed our first devices in California this year.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Appropriate question for election day, right? The color of the map.
That's right. Justin, are you there?
How come there's no red states? Come on.
Yeah.
I am there. I'm about ready to share my screen here. So
Awesome.
let me know if you can see that. All right.
Yep, we can see it now.
Perfect. Okay. So as a little review, as Dave touched on, C2 is our notification platform. It runs in parallel to the physical hardware and system activation that occurs. So it's important to understand when our system is activated, there is, as you saw images of, there are typically strobes and or a PA message that plays throughout the system. We believe strongly in having hardware throughout a building. It's really great to be able to have a system that's set up in a way that anyone can activate it when they feel that they're in danger. One thing to remember is, especially in a lot of school or municipal locations, it's great that you don't have a system where it's just staff that are assigned an app or something that's on their phone or that only they have access to. Staff are not always the ones that are activating something like a fire alarm or security. It's nice to have your occupants that are able to initiate that system activation themselves. So along with our system being activated, along with the PA system or strobes going off and getting everyone to initiate their emergency protocol, the central monitoring station calling the police department and or fire EMS, calling the customer with live operators. While that is all going on, which is very similar in response to a fire system, we have our C2 notification platform that's running in parallel. So these notifications, in many cases, most cases, are not just going to administrators in a building. They're typically also going to staff. In many cases, most cases, they're also being sent to a lot of these first responders, police departments, officers, or fire and EMS that work in the city or area. They're receiving them as well. So one of the great things that we love about our system and how it runs this notification platform in parallel to dispatch is that we're able to give those first responders and administrative staff immediate notification within seconds. Notification of that alarm to get them and their wheels rolling on what they need to be doing, rather than waiting for officers to get the dispatch call over the radio, which could take 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It really varies. And so it's nice that we have a system here that pushes that quickly. The other thing I want to just kind of bring to light is this page that you're looking at. It is specifically for our administrators or first responders that are on the system. This is not typically a page that is seen by everyone who receives notifications. For a school, for example, the staff or teachers typically are just working off of the notifications they receive on their phone, on their messaging app, and sending messages, photos, that sort of thing, back to the system, which then populates all of those responses onto this administrative page that you're seeing. So without further ado, I will activate a pull station in our system here. And what it's going to do is it's going to be an east corridor activation in our demonstration building. So I will activate that now. And so for, I believe there's about half a dozen of you that received or rather sent us your phone information. You should be receiving a phone call and or a text message right now. So go ahead and take a second and listen to that phone call. I'm receiving mine, and I've also received my text. That phone call, essentially, it's a robocall that goes to everyone who would not be receiving a live operator call from the monitoring company, general staff, employees, that sort of thing, informing them over the phone of the alarm that's occurred, where it's occurred, the device location, device, or rather building address, so on and so forth. Along with that, you'll receive your text message. So the text message you receive says BluePoint weapons threat alert, East Corridor, manual pull station, BluePoint World Headquarters, and the address. And then the 4 links that Dave went over. So if I just send a response to that text, and I'd encourage you to do it as well, I'll just say, Justin here, I'm okay. And when I send that out, I'm sending it through my phone on a text message. And again, this administrative portal for first responders and administrators, you'll start seeing these live feed, these responses coming in. You can also access this page yourselves through the live link, that first link on the text message. It will bring you to the same page that I'm looking at now. We've added you as administrators just so you can see exactly what the full suite of the system is. So as you see these come in, you click on that live link, you will see the device alarms up top. In this case, you only have one. It's that East Corridor pull. And then the live heading shows you all of the responses below. As an administrator, I can choose to, we see here Jack had a response, all okay here in Sacramento, California. I can choose to click the reply button. And I can say, good to hear, stay safe. And this is going to be sent, and it's logged that I sent a message to Jack specifically. Jack is going to receive this message directly on his phone as a text message. So this is kind of how we're able to have a unified platform without an app where everyone can have communication back and forth with the right people without allowing everybody to see everything that's going on. If I choose to send a message to everyone to give them an update, I have a little chat and messaging box down here. There's an internal chat for administrators, and that just states here on the web page. And anyone that's an administrator, first responder can kind of have a chat inside and move that information back and forth. When I choose to send something out to everybody, like we did with the initial alarm, I can click on this compose message box. I select my specific group. In this case, it's our command group that we sent it out to. And I can send this distributed message to all. And this is going to go out to everybody that was involved with the actual alarm. And so now everyone should be seeing this distributed message to all. That is a message that went out to everybody. And again, it's logged here on this live page. The next message you can see, or link rather, is the VPI link, or the visual point identification. When you click on that, it's going to bring you to, in this case, a demonstration map, but it'll give you a layout of the building where the activation has occurred. So it's building specific, it's floor specific. So if you have multiple devices activated throughout different floors of a building, the map link you click is for that message. So if you have 2 pull stations activated on 2 different floors, you'll receive 2 text messages with all of these links. So the VPI link you choose is for that specific building and floor that's been activated. And you can see here, we have the blinking light on the East Corridor where we've had our device activation. The next link is the camera link. If you select that link, this will allow you to see the link that's nearest, or camera that's nearest to the device that was activated. This is an optional choice for our clients. Some do not want to put their cameras tied to the system. Some do. What it allows for is a direct live feed from that specific camera that you've assigned to that device or pull station to be pulled up right on your phone. This, of course, is permission-based. First responders, teachers, general staff, administrative staff, you get to choose who receives these links and what types of links they receive. So you can have a camera link that is populated and shows you the camera nearest to that pole. And then lastly is a link that allows you to, I'll bring it up here. If you click on report location, it actually asks for permission to share your location of your phone. And so while this browser page is open, you can actually share your phone location, which then, as an administrator, we can open up a map and we can see everyone who's checked in on that report location link. We can see where they're located. So we can see that we've got Dave down in Wheaton, Illinois. You can click on Dave's. It will show exactly where Dave's at, along with his phone number. And again, I can send him a message directly. I've also checked in. So I can click on myself here in Elgin, Illinois, my phone number, and I can send a message directly to myself. Now you see that Dave has actually updated himself to need help, and so his dot changes to red or green respectively, whether he's okay or if he's not okay.
Keep going back and forth to show that it keeps changing, Justin. So
Gotcha. So there you go. So there's Dave again. We go to need help, click on Dave, and we can see Dave. We've got Jack here saying he's okay. We click on Jack, and it goes to Sacramento. And so we can click on Jack, and again, I can send him a message directly if I'd like. So again, the point is, there's a lot of feature here, a lot of bandwidth to allow a lot of people to give information on what they're doing, checking in. The whole point is situational awareness and expediency. The core of our system is to allow everyone to feel like they've got a lifeline, to be able to send a simple message through the apps they already use on their phone when they're able to, per their safety protocols. Can we get information to the right people, and can those people easily send information back during a real life emergency? I know that was a lot of information. Any questions or inquiries on how that works?
I have a question.
Yeah, Brian.
You make reference in it, and it is to like fire alarm. Do you see any involvement with like the police department or first responders as far as like a review process or a training process, since they do have access to the tool, or any involvement from them, I guess, in like design or something? Or is that all just owner driven?
I would say for the most part, you can add to it, Dave. I'd say for the most part that it's owner driven. It's an owner's system. And so they really pick and choose how much of the system they want to provide notification with to their first responders and fire and EMS. Overwhelmingly, we see police and fire being involved with the notifications. That seems to be when we do trainings. A lot of times trainings involve police or police departments, fire departments, so that they can see what we're installing in their citizens' buildings. Most of them just love that they can receive the notification so quickly and that they know it's being expedited from the monitoring company directly to their dispatch center.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Brian. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, just thank you for going through that.
So, Brian, I was going to tell you that we are not code driven. So to the point of like where layouts are, this is radically different than fire, because if you put a fire alarm in or a fire system in, you have to kind of follow the code for that jurisdiction. We do not do that. But ultimately, we really are engaged with local law enforcement. We have an individual who works for us now who's a retired police officer, police chief, actually, for 20 years. And he fell in love with our system because we got installed in an area where he was police chief. And long story short, he works with local jurisdictions to make sure they're aware. Justin and I were just at a training probably a week and a half ago at a local church that put us into 3 of their locations. And police were there to kind of experience, understand what it worked, but they had no say in kind of where the devices went in the building. They just understood what happens upon an activation. So great question.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. I'll kick it back over to you, Dave.
Thanks. I will pick up the sharing myself. See if I can make this work again. Get back to the Thinking it's getting there. Okay. So let me get back to kind of what we were doing. So we did the product demonstration. Of course, my system has now decided to freeze for a second, so bear with me as it unfreezes. So just some examples of kind of some markets. We've done everything from small businesses, small retail spaces, those that have hub and spoke locations. Those historically have less devices in them, not a need. Our typical install has been kind of a K-12 school, a corporate office, place of worship, municipality buildings. And so there's typically between 10 and 50 devices in those setups. And by devices, we need pull stations or strobes. And then far right, getting involved in some custom kind of integration, working with organizations that have, multiple sites across multiple states, understanding how you do it. But it's just the ability for that. So we kind of fit everywhere, and we have different offerings for different sites. And so, for example, even some of the small sites, we have a self-contained unit that's just very simple plug and play. Some in the middle with the typical ones, you might be a school district that's got 5 locations, kind of all housed under one umbrella of what we call our command and control platform, but they're 5 separate systems because they're all different addresses. So just an example of kind of how we operate. As we kind of go forward, we just have really large amounts of marketing collateral or collaboration that we do with sales information that you can see, you can operate with. So I think of you as you're talking to a client who might think, wow, this might be of great value for them as you're kind of thinking through the building process, general contractor, you can kind of share out an option for them to do. Putting in a wired system is a lot easier when the building is being built. You can obviously do it post that. Wireless is easier to do when a building's already been completed. So anyways, we've got some collaboration of sales collateral. That's just one example. We have case studies, kind of customer testimonials that have been done, which are really powerful of kind of experiences that they've had. We do a lot of work with the Jewish communities. In fact, a lot of work in Pittsburgh, where the Tree of Life incident was a few years ago. In the school settings, there's a law called Alyssa's Law. Alyssa was unfortunately a girl that was killed in the Parkland shooting in Florida. Her parents are very focused on putting these types of systems in schools. And so more and more states, it's still only a handful of states today, but I think we're at 5 now, that are requiring some type of notification device in a building that notifies law enforcement of an emergency versus just calling 911. That's out there. So there's more and more code happening. And we do have a demonstration unit that we actually use. And so when you're out visiting with a client, this kind of shows our system in a box. So just like we ran a demonstration for you using the computer, there's nothing more powerful than walking into an office, plugging this in, giving it 5 minutes to turn on. And those are all kind of our devices. You can see a police and a medical activation device. Top left is a strobe. I think the bottom right there is a speaker that kind of replicates a PA system. Top right is the keypad that kind of shows the system. And then in the middle there on the top is just using an IP addressable camera. We're camera agnostic as long as it's an IP camera to be able to pull that feed. So you go in, you type someone's number in, you have them activate the device, and when their phone rings within seconds, they're kind of blown away of the power of the system. So it's just something we use as we're out. So if you have a client you think could be valuable, we'd happily go along with you and kind of show that. I mentioned Jim Kruger. Jim works with us now, and he kind of works as a liaison between us and our clients and local law enforcement, just to understand that we're making sure communicating the right way, doing all those types of things. He's been a really powerful asset to us as we kind of do it. I mentioned before kind of our small site solution. So if you have smaller buildings that don't really require a really robust system, we kind of build a smaller panel, smaller kind of footprint, really kind of fits for those organizations you see on the left, whether it be, a daycare center or a small building or an auto center where you don't have a lot of square footage, but you have some type of need for response and ability to kind of notify immediately. That's what we do. And then we're also currently developing what we call a prefabricated system, which is really already wired and ready to go. And all you do is plug it in and it's operational. So I say that very easily, but it doesn't take a lot to kind of get that up and running. Hang it on the wall, plug it in, it works. So it's a really powerful tool as you think about the space you have, the size you have, and what you need for a response. So this is a really, really cool system and a very powerful system. that unfortunately is needed in today's world. More and more organizations, as people are coming back to work, as they're requiring people to be in work. Hey, what are you doing in case we have a really horrific situation? How are you responding to that? And that's where the police activation comes into play. But I will tell you, the number of stories we have about a medical emergency happening in a building where we serve just continues to grow. And having our system there for a simple activation provides great value. So while you might have been brought in to kind of provide protection from a worst case scenario, the value of having something there for a medical emergency really provides great value for an organization. We have a school locally that has had multiple medical issues that they've dealt with, and they've actually shared with us that the cost they spent to put the system in pales in comparison to the value they've seen from it, and the fact that they believe our system has actually saved one of their students' lives. And they said you can't put a price on that. So really powerful in that way. So we want to be respectful, and we got through it. So I know there were some questions throughout the whole piece, but would love to open up now for any additional questions or thoughts, or as you think about your client base or what you do, where there potentially could be some needs for the BluePoint system. I'm going to stop sharing and kind of go back to that, but we'd love to have some kind of dialogue now as we wrap up.
Yeah, have you run into any kind of permitting issues?
So far, we have not. JT is on the call. He might want to answer as well.
Yeah, we have not in terms of the actual install process, because there is no code really behind this type of system yet, but some jurisdictions may require a permit for the actual monitoring of the system, similar to, a fire or an intrusion system, but that's really jurisdiction by jurisdiction. That's just for the monitoring side. That doesn't really apply to the actual installation of the devices in our experience. Great question.
Yeah, I got a question. Do you guys have any kind of modules or anything that allow it to interact with a mass notification system that's already in place?
Yeah, another good question. So we do have the ability to both accept and provide simple, dry contact relays. So we can, if somebody wants to use an external system to activate our system and sort of harness the power of C2, dispatch, and or the notification appliances on site, we can accept just a simple 2-conductor in as an input, or we can also provide relays as an output. So if a BluePoint device were activated and you also wanted to use that activation to trigger mass notification or something else already on site, we could just provide a simple dry contact relay for that purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
And we can work with your fire alarm mass notification system provider to be able to generate custom specific messages and tones to be used in conjunction with reporting BluePoint activations.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's one thing that I was thinking. I'm like, a lot of places actually already have the notification portion involved, even if they don't have if they don't have like a pull station for the police, but that might be something that might be useful.
For sure.
Yeah, we see that. Haven't seen it maybe as much with mass notification, but we do see that a lot where a customer will decide they want to use our system to trigger a pre-programmed message maybe over their PA system, or sometimes they want to have our system trigger some kind of response on their access control, right? Lock doors or unlock certain doors to let the law enforcement officers come in, things like that. So we do the relay integration quite often.
All right.
You have a second or two more here.
As it was Marty, one of the reasons I wanted to connect with Clark and show you guys this system is we know you're interacting with end user clients all the time, and I'm sure you get inquiries about solutions to meet concerns of the time we live in, and thought it would be helpful for Clark to have this in their an arrow in their quiver, so to speak, to go to offer to their client.
Yeah, and I would just add that if you do have any customers, clients who you think might be interested, we're always happy to help with, because this isn't code driven, similar to fire alarm, at least not yet. We're always happy to help with our recommended, device deployment, system deployment, device locations. We can help with everything from the locations down to the circuiting and, how systems would lay out in terms of where cable needs to go and what the power requirements would be and all those things. Always happy to help with that.
I'll also throw out that I know there's been a lot of discussion about schools, because that's where BluePoint started, but we didn't stop there. And as Dave pointed out, we migrated into lots of different vertical markets, and we're doing factories and distribution centers and on and on and on. So we were working with a client last week on a 750,000 square foot distribution center where they did a drill and found out a lot of shortcomings in their response protocol, and they're very anxious to get moving forward with a BluePoint system in their building.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think a lot of people don't even know we exist, and that's the more important piece: is the simplicity of it, the power of it. But it's like, wow, it's so easy to use in an activation and a need. I don't remember, Marty, the exact words they used, but I think it was something along the lines of, this seems like a perfect fit for what we're looking for, was kind of what they said. So all that to be said, I think as you look and you build and you work with these clients, how do you differentiate yourself and what can you do? And I think BluePoint can be of great value in that way. So happy to kind of support in any way we can as you think about, kind of providing value to your clients as you're building buildings or working with them.
So from a small, medium, and large system viewpoint, what's it cost to get it designed and installed, and what's the annual fee for monitoring?
Great question. We've seen small systems as little as $25,000. I mean, that's for a smaller school. If you did like a standalone, really small system, that could be done for $5,000 to $6,000. We've also seen large warehouses be, into the six figures, depending on how robust you go with pull stations and with strobing. So that's kind of it. The monitoring is really based on the number of phone numbers in the system. But if you put 100 contacts in the system, all in, you're probably looking at, $3,600 a year for monitoring and maintenance of that system. So, maybe $300 a month when it's all said and done. But if you grow and have multiple sites, that kind of shrinks and gets smaller per site based on economies of scale. But that's kind of high end.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, just JT, what was the gel cert? I don't know if you have this memorized off the top of your head, but that's 2 locations, 2 big warehouses, and a corporate office on 2 different spaces, right? They have like 700 employees in there, so I think they're like at $6,000 for the year, but don't quote me. But that's just an example, Don, of kind of what it looks like.
All right, thank you.
I was about to put JT on the spot and then answered for him, so hopefully I was close to the right answer. So,
I don't have that one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When it's all said and done, it is very cost effective. It's not as expensive as people believe. Comparatively speaking to a fire alarm, it's really not expensive at all. And then just the value of that system from a monitoring standpoint for whether it be a weapons threat event or a medical emergency, or you could even do hazardous material. You've now created all these opportunities to respond. In addition, if an organization has an on-site security staff, you can actually coordinate our systems to even have what we call a security response, which all it might do is notify the security team on site first before it does anything else. And then they have the ability to put it in full lockdown if they realize it's, more than what they want to deal with. So I think that's what creates great value for us, is it's a very customizable system that really fits in any situation. I'll close before I hand it over to Marty to really close it out. But if you have a client or a thought or a need of somebody out there, even if you had a simple floor plan of the building, we could work with you on what it might look like. And if you think of a client might have interest, Marty, myself, Justin, Jake, who was on the call last week, we have others who could even do a demonstration and walk through the client with them. So here to help and support. With that, Marty, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your time this afternoon. Glad to spend some time with you talking about the BluePoint Alert solution and our C2 platform. Glad to take it a step further when you have a client that you think is the right fit and has a need for his awesome solution. We're here to help. Jack's got our contact information and can connect us up, and look forward to putting our BluePoint system in some of Clark's prize construction projects. Thank you all.
All right.
you.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks,
Thank you
David.
very much.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate
the
it.
information.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.
Everyone, y'all.